It always begins as a whisper. A girl in the rain. A boy with a bruised face. A soldier, standing alone, staring at the ruins of a home he once called his own. There's no intro. No credits. No warning. Just a frame soaked in sorrow. And before you even realize it, you've leaned in. You were fine 10 seconds ago. But now, something's lodged in your throat, a feeling you can't name. A kind of ache that doesn't feel like fiction. Because somehow, this already knows you. These videos arrive like clockwork. One after another. Every day. Over an hour long. It's not just impressive, it's impossible. The voice never changes. The rhythm is mechanical. The emotion, perfectly placed. Soldiers become saints. Little girls become prophets. Millionaires fall to their knees in alleys and barns and ruined churches. These aren't stories, they're rituals. Carefully coded, precisely repeated. And you're not just a viewer. You're part of it now. The algorithm doesn't just feed you what you want. It feeds you what you're too tired to resist. Late at night, eyes burning from the screen's glow, you scroll, you click, and you sink. Because it knows the exact kind of sorrow you've stopped telling anyone about. It knows when your walls are lowest. And it delivers. Every title is a spell. A soldier returned to bury his wife. But then the coffin shook. A girl cried, "Dad locked me in," and the truth left them frozen. The structure never breaks. Pain first. Cry second. Revelation last. A formula that's been sharpened, boiled down, and deployed with the precision of psychological warfare. This is not entertainment. This is exposure therapy with no therapist. This is grief on a drip feed. And someone, or something, is watching how it moves through you. You start noticing the patterns. The thumbnails blur into each other. The faces change, but the agony stays the same. Always a child. Always a soldier. Always a moment where the world fails, and the viewer is the only one who sees the truth. It feels personal, like prophecy, like memory dressed in new clothes. But here's what no one wants to admit. These stories don't feel like fiction. They feel implanted. Like a dream you didn't have, but still remember. Like a memory someone else needed you to carry. And the comments, they confirm it. This story broke me. Why does this feel more real than my own life? I don't know why I'm crying. It's no longer a channel, it's a confessional. A digital church for the emotionally exiled. And everyone watching feels the same thing. Connection through collapse. But who's behind it? Where are these stories really coming from? The narrator never slips. The pacing never stutters. The dialogue, too sharp, too rhythmic, too emotionally precise. Some suspect AI. Some whisper about content farms in places with no daylight, where empathy is manufactured like nicotine. But the real question is harder to ask. What if the algorithm isn't copying our grief? What if it's teaching us how to feel it? These aren't stories. They're simulations of trauma, rehearsed again and again until the viewer becomes complicit. Until they need the next cry, the next twist, the next soldier who kneels in the rain and says, "I should have come back sooner." And by the time you realize what it's doing, it's too late. You're subscribed. You're sharing it. You're whispering lines in your sleep. The algorithm didn't just find you. It selected you. Becomes home to silence. Not parades. Not banners. Just a locked door and a daughter who doesn't recognize him. He wears the uniform, but it doesn't protect him anymore. Now he's standing in courtrooms where truth is currency and he's bankrupt. He's sleeping in basements that reek of mildew and memory. He's knocking on doors that once opened without hesitation, now bolted shut with shame. The war is over, they say. But for him, it never really ended. It just changed locations. He doesn't speak much. But when he does, it's not to ask, it's to remember. Because someone has to. The courtroom laughs when he pleads. The family disowns him when he returns. The wife rewrites the past with paper-thin lies and legally binding ink. And always, always, the child watches from a corner, too afraid to speak, too wise to forget. Then comes the moment, always late in the second act, when he finds it. A box. A photo. A letter no one wanted him to read. Buried under ash, floorboards, behind rotting insulation. And that's when the script cracks open like a ribcage. That's when the man no one believed becomes the man no one can deny. Not because he fights back, but because he knows. Because pain sharpens perception. Because in this world, only the broken ones can see what's hidden. You've seen this man before. Not just in these stories, in your dreams. In that place between sleep and memory, where his silhouette waits by a window that never quite opens. He's an archetype. A warning. The wounded savior. The exiled prophet. His journey is always the same: humiliation, truth, vindication. But only after complete disintegration. These episodes don't just reflect trauma. They instruct it. Because pain here isn't a side effect. It's the requirement. He must be isolated. He must be forgotten. Only then is he allowed to find the truth. And the reward? Not love. Not forgiveness. The reward is revelation. A final moment of clarity that stings more than it soothes. And yet, future, we call it justice. We say, finally, someone believed him. But what we mean is, finally, he bled enough for us to care. In leaked testimony from Project Bluebird, an early psychological operation buried under decades of redaction, one subject whispered it plain: only the broken ones can see it. Maybe they weren't talking about government secrets. Maybe they were talking about us. About this story. About the man in uniform who knocks on the door, again and again, knowing no one will answer, but needing to prove he still remembers the way home. And that cry you hear near the end of every episode, when he drops to his knees, eyes full of something between rage and forgiveness, that's not acting. That's residue. That's code breaking. That's a moment meant not to entertain you, but to program you. Because the soldier doesn't cry first. He cries second. And by then, you've already joined him. She stands in the doorway, hair damp, voice thin as a thread pulled too tight. No name. No explanation. Just her eyes, wide, unblinking, ancient. She doesn't scream. She doesn't run. She simply speaks, and when she does, the world bends slightly around her words. He's still here. It hurts when I sit. She said not to tell. And somehow, every syllable is heavier than truth. Because this girl, she doesn't lie. She remembers. She is in nearly every story. Different faces, different names, but always the same eyes. The same soft footsteps in abandoned hallways. She draws things she shouldn't know. She points to places no adult would think to search. And always, someone in the room freezes. A soldier. A priest. A stranger passing through. Because what she says isn't just eerie, it's specific. Uncomfortably so. And deep down, you realize what you're watching isn't just a performance. It's disclosure. The language is too precise. Too patterned. Whispers that mimic real trauma interview scripts. The kind used when police don't want to lead a child's memory. She uses fragments. Circular speech. She says things like, the hot room, or the crack under the bed. Forensic experts would call it narrative leakage. But here, in this context, it feels like something older. Like prophecy wrapped in the syntax of someone who hasn't yet learned to lie properly. These girls are never the center of the story. They orbit around the wreckage. A funeral. A divorce. A vanishing. But somehow, they see everything. They aren't the ones missing, they're the ones pointing to what's been hidden. And what they reveal. It's never just about them. It's about you. Because what she's whispering feels like something you were supposed to remember. There's something uncomfortable in the comments. Thousands of viewers, treating these girls like saints, like avatars. She's an angel. This child is from another world. She reminds me of my dreams. You begin to wonder if this is storytelling or something else. A shared trance. A ritual performance of empathy, guilt, and silent terror. You start reading her dialogue aloud. Slowly. Carefully. Like it might unlock something in the room around you. Or inside you. And maybe that's what these stories are really doing. Not just showing you a child in pain, but making you sit beside her. Making you listen the way no one in the story ever does. Because the child doesn't just suffer. She signals. She decodes. She remembers. And in these stories, Memory is a map. A minefield. A door no one wants to open, because on the other side is the thing we all agreed to forget. But she didn't. She was too young to be told what to ignore. Too small to understand what silence costs. So she speaks, not to accuse, but to remind. And every time she does, the temperature in the room drops. Just a little. Because she knows what you buried. She knows what you forgot. And worse, she knows that now, you remember too. They never leave the house as it was. The wallpaper always peels in one corner. The attic smells like smoke and secrets. The basement is locked, or worse, nailed shut. And the will? If it exists, it's missing pages, water damaged, smudged with something red that isn't quite rust. In these stories, inheritance isn't a gift. It's a dare. A whisper from the past daring you to dig, knowing full well what you'll find can never be unseen. It starts the same way. A letter arrives. A phone call from a lawyer who doesn't speak above a whisper. A key left in a hollow statue's mouth. And then they return, the discarded child, the disgraced soldier, the daughter no one wanted. Not to claim riches, but to walk through the wreckage of a memory no one else was brave enough to hold. Because what waits for them isn't gold. It's evidence. Trapdoors creak open to reveal letters that should have been burned. Photos hidden behind drywall. Maps with symbols that match the child's drawings. It's too neat to be random. Too detailed to be fiction. You start to wonder, are these not stories, but recreations? Emotional simulations to trigger something inside the viewer? Because every twist feels eerily familiar, like you once found something in your own house you weren't supposed to touch. And the fortune, when it comes, never arrives clean. It comes with stipulations. Legal battles. Visions. A man in a dark coat who appears outside the house at 2:14 a.m., just staring. Every reward is laced with threat. As if the house itself is watching, punishing those who weren't supposed to return. And yet, they do. Because they must. Because something inside them, or something inside us, demands resolution. These aren't just haunted houses. They're initiations. You suffer. You search. You find. You remember. And then, only then, are you allowed to reclaim something that was always yours, yet stolen before you knew it existed. The inheritance is symbolic. It's memory, bloodline, legacy, denied until pain is proven. Like some ancient test where only those who've bled on the threshold are worthy of opening the door. The pattern is too precise. Like ritual. Like programming. Over and over, different characters, same steps. Rejection. Revelation. Resurrection. And the object that binds them? Always the same. A house no one wants to live in, but no one can forget. A structure that rots with memory. A map that ends where childhood once began. And inside, the thing they left for you. Not money. Not freedom. The truth. And it's always humming. Waiting. Knowing that no matter how far you run, inheritance always arrives. Whether you accept it or not. They don't shout. They whisper. In comment threads stretching into the hundreds, they leave breadcrumbs, fragments of something larger, something pulsing just under the surface. 2:14, I broke. For 02, that left. They're not reacting. They're responding. As if the video reached inside them and pulled something buried loose. And the deeper you scroll, the more you notice. They all say the same thing. Not in words. In tone. In ache. In ritual. This isn't fandom. This is communion. They quote the same lines. Repeat the same phrases like liturgy. He came back, but too late. She whispered under the floor. The same story, different voices, like echoes bouncing off a sealed chamber no one remembers entering. And yet, somehow, they all know the layout. They speak of the girl like she's real. Of the soldier like he was their father. Of the millionaire like he still owes them something. And when someone new arrives, broken, grieving, unable to sleep, the others are already there, arms open, voices low. You're safe now. Just watch one more. There are patterns here no algorithm can explain. Commenters timestamp trauma like it's sacred scripture. Emotional spikes cataloged with surgical precision. And those lines, the ones that slice through like razors dipped in honey, are too familiar. Not just emotionally. Verbatim. Pulled straight from documents buried in the CIA's archives. Operation Bluebird. Project Monarch. Trauma scripting to fracture and rebuild memory. Cold protocols designed to induce disassociation, now disguised as bedtime stories. Some episodes mirror Reddit posts word for word. Stories from r/nosleep, yes. But others, darker, from threads that vanished. Threads where the users deleted their accounts. Where moderators stepped in. Where timelines didn't line up. And yet, here they are again. Sanitized. Polished. Reskinned as fiction. But the damage? Still intact. Like a wound pressed beneath glass. The narrator never speaks beyond the script. No live streams. No face. No error in tone. An emotionless voice that trembles exactly when needed, cracks just enough to feel human. But the waveform says otherwise. Audio forensics suggests synthetic modulation. AI synthesis. The same vocal signature used in narrative laundering operations, ghost voices built from hundreds of hours of emotional mimicry. But here's the final fracture. The scariest part. In one video, buried at 39:18, a child whispers something nearly lost under ambient noise. The subtitles say, "I'm scared." But if you isolate the track, clean the layer, slow it down, she says, "I remember the lab." Not once. Twice. "I remember the lab." No one in the comments questioned it. They simply replied, "Same." Maybe the stories are made up. Maybe the names are changed. Maybe none of it's real. Or maybe the comments knew first.